Welcome to another amazing episode of Gaslighting. I'm here joined by some beautiful young ladies. Miss Essence to the far right, Miss Jeskell right here, and of course the one and only Miss Taylor. All right, so today on episode 61, we're discussing gaslighting within relationships. Jeskell, have you ever experienced or been a victim of gaslighting?
Actually, I've gaslit myself.
Ooh.
Right. So, who do you think you are? Even sitting on this couch right now, like, who's going to listen to you? Why do they want to listen to you? People are going to say stuff about you. They're going to pick on you. Like, I have really had to unlearn. I'm 33, 30-something years of trying to hold myself back. And I'm sure that came from childhood. I'm sure that came from, friends or what have you, but I had to learn to listen to my inner voice.
Absolutely.
Like, that is the person that knows the most. Like, everything I need is already inside of me. So if I feel that I am worthy to be on the episode of Black Fly on the Wall, like, everything that I have, everything inside of me is all I need to be on this episode.
Absolutely, because gaslighting is essentially manipulating someone or yourself into questioning their own sanity, right? So on a serious note, we understand that gaslighting is real, but also too, like Jeskell was saying, you can sometimes manipulate yourself to make you question yourself, to then where you also conflict your own sanity to ask yourself, am I worthy enough? Sometimes people call that imposter syndrome, right? Sometimes, like, am I worthy enough to be in this space? Am I worthy enough to be run this business? Am I worthy enough to be an amazing business owner? Am I worthy enough to trying something completely new and different out of the box? And so, like, it does, I think gaslighting and imposter syndrome are sometimes things that we can kind of put on ourselves a lot of times as well. But also too, gaslighting happens whenever engaging in toxic relationships, whether that's toxic relationships with family members, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever. Taylor, have you ever experienced gaslighting or been the person that was gaslighting someone else? It happens.
It does
happen.
happen.
It does. I mean, I'm sure I've been on the receiving end and on the gaslighting end. I think in general people have their argumentative tactics. They have their defense methods. I think they have their attack methods, and that is a method that people deploy. I think it's very easy to do so because you don't have to take accountability in a conversation, in a relationship, for some of the things that you may not be giving to your partner, or it's a way of not hearing what they're saying to you.
Right. And like Drake said, you're working with the spatula. Like, you know how to flip it. That's a way. That's gaslighting.
That was a great. That's
gaslighting. Like, you constantly are, trying to work through a particular issue or complication within a relationship of itself, and you work with the spatula. Like, you always flip it on the other person.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
And it's a way of not taking accountability, and so you make somebody else feel bad about themselves as a method of not taking accountability. And I think sometimes people do that and they don't know. I think that you can genuinely have grown up seeing that and think that's your measure of health or normalcy. And I think oftentimes it's important that, like, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I'm in therapy every week.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be in therapy, I think, for until I die.
Because,
no, for real.
It's
because
important.
It's my intentional space to work on myself and to hold a mirror to myself, and sometimes to inquire and discuss and reflect about, like, is this normal? Because I grew up in spaces where I knew it was uncomfortable, but it became the norm. And so sometimes I'm looking for a barometer of, like, what's healthy, what's healthy. And so sometimes you engage and you do things because you've seen it and you don't know any different.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Taylor. I think it's when you're doing it on purpose, because I do agree also that, like, it can be just what you've learned growing up, but I think it's a way to not have to work on yourself. If I can just point out everything that's wrong with you, I never have to look at what's wrong with me. So I'm going to figure out every single thing I can so that the conversation never gets back to me.
Exactly.
It's always on you. You always are the problem. You always have something to fix. Exactly. And I think that's the number one tell sign in any type of relationship. If it's always one person, then it's probably more often you, the person that's pointing the finger, than it is that person.
Right.
So I've only been in one relationship. So when I was thinking about gaslighting, I thought about it on like a spectrum, which is sad because I feel like gaslighting is a new term that just came out with, came out with social media. It's existed,
Well, social media
but
pushes it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
like
Right.
toxic and
Right.
different words that triggers
Right.
that are buzzwords. But I couldn't think of like a situation, but then I was like, okay, let's think about it. But there have been several moments where I was with my ex, I'm like, am I crazy? Like,
Yeah.
or
Well,
I'm
that's-
like,
Yeah.
That's the
the
thing,
characteristic.
like it makes you judge. Gaslighting makes you judge your perceptions, and it makes you question your judgment.
yeah.
Right? Okay, like what I'm experiencing right now in this current moment am I perceiving what the reality that I'm currently in? It's kind of like almost like some people when doing research talk about just being in a daze or like a fog. Like gaslighting is a real like it's like conscious mental warfare.
Yeah.
It's fatiguing, it wears you down to a point where you
Second guess yourself.
You second guess yourself, right? So I think it's important for us to always like to look at it, and I think what you said, the key word that you said that was true was spectrum. Like gaslighting is in spectrum. You said something critical about how you were in therapy weekly because of like, upbringing. And I feel like us as African Americans have to shift the way that children are raised to where
Yeah.
it's not normalized to be like to experience trauma.
Right.
It's not normalized to experience a negative atmosphere or a negative environment.
Yeah.
Like it's not normal. So like we
Right.
have to progress away from that feeling like it's normal for me to feel down until I get to adulthood and can now do the things that I want to do, that I
Right.
want to do.
Right.
So it's important for children to live a life of abundance, to live life free, to be happy, because those are years and time that you can't get back. right?
Absolutely. To be able to.
But to get there, you have to be working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that the quality of your relationships is a direct reflection of your work on yourself.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm working and changing myself and I approach the way I communicate with people, that will shift our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big thing is that I've become so intentional about whatever I feel like I'm not getting in the other person, that I really like work hard to deliver that to them, because it can't, I feel like in that type of exchange, it comes back around.
Yeah.
And it shifts and it elevates the relationship every time I shift and elevate. And so I think when you're speaking about how children are raised, like that is the work you do right now on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen like you become a parent and you all of a sudden get it all.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to your children are a direct reflection of your work on yourself, like every other relationship.
Yeah.
And like,
it's-
I'm a big proponent of accountability.
Yes.
Right? I think accountability should be in every single thing that you do. It should be in how you communicate with your friends. It should be specifically in the relationships that, especially the ones that you receive trauma in. So like what you're saying is echoing like an old African proverb that says what is in is what is out. So what you have internally is what comes out into reality of what you're experiencing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Which is why the therapy and all those other things are important, but it's also a proponent of gaslighting, right? So like we all are proponents of manifestation and the law of attraction. So like if you're constantly attracting these relationships that are toxic, you're constantly attracting these men or women that are bringing this gaslighting into every relationship that you're in. It's not a coincidence that you are the common denominator of that.
Right.
So men and
Hold on.
women.
Hold on.
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. Because all of these, even for the fellas, like I tell my friends this all the time, all of these women from different states, different cities, different friends groups are not getting together before they date you and you having these same experiences.
Right.
So what you have to be critical of is understanding that, is there something that I have to change in my mentality
Absolutely.
about the people and the type of people that I date so that I don't continue to experience the same cycle that I'm experiencing? Because we are thought, right? The universe is mental. So everything that we think and our feelings, our emotions, the things that we say are a proponent of our reality. So we have to continue to make sure that we are accountable and saying, you know what? I'm going to break the cycle of no longer dating men that gaslight me within relationships.
Yeah.
And then once you make that, let you go.
Everybody want to go.
But once you make that commandment, though, it's a commandment.
Yeah.
So once you command that into the atmosphere, it will no longer happen.
See, at first, when you first made your statement, I was like, no, I was ready to pounce.
That's why it's important.
Right.
See,
So
I knew where y'all was going. That's why it's
said,
important to listen to hear the whole
myself.
thing.
I'm still kind of
Let me reel it back but I understand how you feel though.
Yeah.
It's an emotional response.
Well, see, for my thing, I feel like, okay, there's like a saying, basically, to be wise, you would have once had to be foolish, right?
Okay.
So you're at one point you were a fool. But now that you have that wisdom, so the part that I agree with you on is when you recognize that, okay, trigger, like it happened again, or this is what I'm experiencing. Now you're wise to see it. You know, my therapist, I go to therapy too every day. Well, every week. Every week. But he always says, like, catch it, check it, change it. You know?
Okay.
So now that I'm aware that that's a thing.
Say that again. Say that.
Catch it, check it, change it.
That would have cost us $50 right there.
$20 with my copay. But yes, so I agree with that part. So now that you've acknowledged that, okay, this is a pattern, now it's up to you to change it. But originally, like, if you don't even know what gaslighting is, if you've never been in that situation, you're gonna have to go through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think though, I 100% agree with what he's saying, because that means that you are accountable. Like, you can't say, oh, well, all men are trash. It's like, you have to realize what about you is attracting this, or what are you attracted to inside of these men? What brokenness inside of you is attracted to the brokenness inside of them? And you keep going back to it. Why do you keep going back to it? Where did you come from? Childhood or what have you? And so once you realize it, like, even if you meet that man again, you're going to recognize him sooner. You know,
you're going to recognize the flaws.
Yeah, you're going to recognize that this is the same man as before. This is the same man as my father, or this was the same man as my uncle, my mom. I keep finding this person. And so once you go through therapy, like, again, I'm in therapy too. I wish I could go every day. But like, you get the tools. So again, what you were saying, like, okay, you have to go through it once. I do understand that. But if you keep going through it, like, you have to look at yourself. Like, you can't blame the people that surround you. And I wanted to, like, what y'all was saying about the child, like, it triggered me so much because I dated my ex, right? And I used to tell him how I feel. So I'm in therapy and I'm learning my therapy practices, right? So I'm telling him, I'm using my words. Like, you make me feel this way. No, I don't. And I'm like, you know, it didn't make sense to me. So then I finally had a conversation with his mom, right? I felt like I was arguing with him and I learned that's where he gets it from. He never got validated as a child. He never learned these tactics as a child. So therefore now he might not understand that he's gaslighting me, but I see where it came from. And so it is so important to learn now. It's not when you have children, like, you learn now so we can practice with each other. Like, if Essence, as my friend, came to me and said, hey, Jeskell, what you said really hurt me, I have to then acknowledge that. I have to change it. I have to catch it, check it, and then change it. Especially if I value you, especially if I value our relationship, then that's going to be what I will want to do. And like, you know, we said at the beginning, gaslighting is not always purposeful, but when you are told about it, when you get the knowledge, then you have to change it, or you're just going to keep completing these cycles, especially with your children.
And two, we also have to be open-minded to the fact that everybody can't afford therapy, right? That's a major issue within the community, within the therapy world, within the mental health world. I work in a hospital setting where I see people come in, day out, schizophrenic, bipolar, all of these mental health disorders that cannot afford the services that they need, right? So I think also too, within gaslighting, we have to be empathetic to victims. To the fact that not everybody has had the example or the life experiences to say, I don't know how to recognize gaslighting, so I continue to be in these situations. Or I don't have a therapist, right, that can check me and say, hold on, like, what you're saying about this particular instance isn't really the individual, it's more so you have to change your mindset on that. So I think it's about also, like, gaslighting is about being empathetic to the victims, but also understanding accountability and how we can make those things play with one another.
I was going to speak to, like, a big thing that's, I think the underlying theme of what we're speaking to is awareness. Like, I think there's an expectation in all of this that somebody becomes aware of what gaslighting is or what healthy relationships look like, and then having that mean enough to them to change it. And sometimes people have come from a place of this is normal.
Yeah.
That there's not an incentive to change because they don't know what's possible. And
Right.
I think it's important, even in gaslighting and in relationships, that you start to define for yourself what you would like, what healthy relationships look like, affirming and speaking to traits within yourself that contribute or create healthy relationships. But I think awareness is number one, but it also has to matter to you to change. There's
Yeah.
things that I know about myself that I'm still not ready to change. I don't like them. They make me uncomfortable. I judge myself around them, but it's still not enough to make me change. And so I think people have to want different. They have to see different. They have to know what different feels like. And sometimes that's, I think, what keeps people stuck.
And I think you just said one of the most powerful things that I believe in the universe is desire.
Yeah.
Desire is one of the most critical and the most strongest emotions that an individual can feel as it pertains to the things that they want to change, to the things that they love, to the areas that they want to progress in.
Motivation.
The motivation, the desire to do well, the desire to be in a healthy relationship, the desire to grow personally, the desire to be a wife, to be a husband, to be a great mother, to be a great father. Like, and before you get to being great, you have to desire that thing.
Absolutely.
And I think what you said about awareness is critical, because it's like we oftentimes attach ourselves to a label, but like whenever you said that, something resonated with me and said, I was like, whenever you were a child and you drank something that was spoiled, you didn't know the bacteria that was in it. You just knew something wasn't right.
Absolutely.
And so like we have to be the same way in relationships. It's like you may not be able to put the term on it.
But you know
You
that
don't know if it's
it's not
toxic.
right.
I think
You
that's
know
what
it doesn't
happens.
Like you
feel
don't know
good
if it's
inside.
you don't know if it's gaslighting. You don't know what it is, but something ain't right.
That's why even when you
Right.
ask the question, you know, me and Essence, I think we're both on the same page. Like, I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm sure.
You know someone right.
Yeah, you know
Sure.
something is
But
right.
even in
Absolutely.
awareness and everything and creating the space, I feel like having this conversation and resources, like you said, is gonna like change things, because even if people can't afford, you know, therapy or can't recognize it, like we said, like you have to question yourself, like, have I been gaslit? But if you create a space and people are talking about it and they're like, well, this happened to me, because you know, in the Black community, we don't talk about stuff.
Right. We
But
don't talk
you're
about
like,
it.
oh, that sounds like something my boyfriend did. Now you're like,
Yeah.
you're helping other people become aware
And
that this
two-
is exactly what it is.
And two, like it's empathy for ourselves. Like us as a Black community have been through so much. We've been through a generation of mothers raising daughters who are now our mothers in a toxic environment, and that's been passed down to us because it was normal 60 years ago. It was normal 100 years ago.
Yep.
We're coming out of slavery, transitioning into
Jim
a
Crow,
phase, Jim Crow,
segregation.
segregation. We never had a time to take a break.
Yeah.
That trauma is
That's
trauma.
very
The trauma,
true.
like
It
it's
is trauma.
built in, it's built into our DNA.
Yeah.
So like even myself, I've been to therapy by myself, and I've been to therapy with my father. And what I've learned is that whenever I saw a man that I've always admired but never really been able to get along with in my adulthood, when I saw him break down and have a moment of vulnerability, that's when I understood. The light bulb came on with me and said, like, this is a human.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a human being.
Yeah.
Take away the father role,
Right,
take away all
right.
that.
That
This is a human being that has been
powerful,
through
because
something.
It gives you empathy
Right.
in a way
Right.
that you didn't have, because you're looking at your father like, you're my parent. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to have to do this work. You know, and it's like, I think when you free yourself from that and you see the human, and it's like,
Yeah.
how would that, knowing what you know about this human, what type of human would like come out of those circumstances?
Right.
Absolutely.
What you've gotten.
It's what you make it's what you
Yeah.
make. If you go into a lab and you make something in a contaminated environment,
You get
what you make
contaminated.
is going to
Yes, absolutely.
contamination is going to be the contamination is going to be within that.
Absolutely.
And so like we have to consistently look and say, self-analyzation is key. Like, what can I do? When I started looking at my dad as a human being,
Yeah.
and I started to increase my awareness with the books that I read,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the things that I listened to. I listened to a lot of Sadhguru, a lot of Deepak Chopra, and listen to how these men talk about vulnerability and talk about looking at people as human beings, people that have also been through things. And I realized, I'm like, my dad behaves in a certain type of way because of the things that he's been through.
through.
Yeah.
So who am I to really judge him
Yes.
based on his behaviors.
And also, you have to, like you said, like you strip away the title, because it's not like we sat down and said, okay, hey, this is what a son is, this is what a dad is. So you have what you think a dad is supposed to be, and if he doesn't match up to that, then it's wrong. And it's like, no, he doesn't match up to that. But you can look at this person, your friend, your boyfriend, your whatever, and say, okay, but what is this person doing? They haven't said it like this, but they're saying it like that. They aren't doing it like this, they're doing it like that. And when you have the empathy, you can foster that relationship. Like, okay, well, this is what I need from you, instead of just it's like, okay, well, you're a dad, so you're supposed to play catch with me. I didn't play catch with my dad, so how was I supposed to know to play catch with you and whatever? So it's like, but if you sit down with your father, you know, there are certain situations, but if you just explain to them, your friend, whatever, somebody that loves you, hey, this is what I need from you, then they're gonna try to rise to that occasion. But you have to let them do it in their way.
That's how I love my dad to death, and that's how our relationship was able to rebound to where it is today, is because I said, you know what? I was in therapy, and my therapist said, you have to let it go. You cannot go back to the past.
Yeah.
You cannot go back to when he was a child and retrain him and give him all these positive experiences that would now make him the man that you want him to be.
Yeah.
When he said, when are you going to let it go? And I said, you know what? Damn.
Right now, I guess.
I said, I have to let it go. Once I let it go,
it freed up the
propel.
relationship.
It
freed up the relationship.
Me holding on to it.
It gave him so much space. You gave him so much space to grow any type of way. When you put that person in this narrow space, and then they're scared.
It's like a cat in the corner.
Yeah,
man.
they don't know what to do. They don't know how to step out. But if you give them all the,
and he told me that. He told me he was afraid. He told me he was afraid of addressing his demons.
You just said it.
That was deep for a man to suppress his ego in that particular moment, to lower his self-esteem, and to say that because it's like, damn. He showed that in that moment. He showed me that's what a father is. He showed me that, like, a father is a person that is not afraid to be vulnerable. That a father is a man that's not afraid to be vulnerable, but understand he's still gonna maintain the respect from his son. Because vulnerability doesn't mean that we're gonna lose respect. And I feel like even seeing him go through the process of being married to my mom, him growing up, I'm like, this is a man that experienced gaslighting his entire life. So you only replicate the behaviors that you are consistently experience.
Taylor just said it, but honestly, I feel like through that situation, you know, we're gonna be like the catalyst of change, like in our family, and
you have to be.
This generation.
This generation is.
You know, like you said, our parents experienced it, our grandparents experienced it, but like even seeing us heal changes them. Us changing our perspective, like molds them, and I've seen that with my own, you know, parents as well.
Yeah, and then you say that about, like, you made a great point, because, like, not only are we gaslighting each other in our homes, the world is gaslighting us as black men, as black women. You're aggressive. You can't wear your hair like that. Oh, you're not as smart. Oh, well, you know, it's only 2 African Americans in your program. Like, are you sure you're gonna make it? And things like that. So it's like, when we were brought over here and certain practices were given to us, we just kept doing that to each other, not knowing why.
Duplicating toxic behaviors.
It's you know, slavery syndrome. Like, we kept doing the same things until now. Like you said, this generation is like, well, why? Well, hold on. Well, what does this mean? Why should we do this? Should we continue this, or should we not continue this? Talking about our emotions, talking about our feelings. Like, you know, it was at one point like our parents toughened us up or did things to us because they knew what was waiting outside our door. But it's like, obviously that didn't help. That wasn't the way to go. But trial and error. Like, we had to learn first that this wasn't it, so that now we're here and this generation is here to change it.
And the thing about gaslighting, unfortunately, we have to be the ones that carry that weight as children of the previous generation, because who else is going to do it?
Right.
So with trial and error,
I don't think we have to carry the weight.
But I believe that with trial and error, who's going to experience the error? In life, we look at, okay, we made a great achievement in the trial, but somebody had to the tree has to bear the fruit. So the tree has to go through wintertime and experience the cold, experience the struggle until spring and summertime comes around to harvest the fruit. So there was an amazing quote that says, all seeds are buried, but not all seeds become plants. So we have to continuously look at it and say, damn. So that means that somebody has to go through something in order for me to experience positivity.
Right.
Because the world all evolves on the axis of polarity. It's negative and there's positive. It's yin and it's yang. So that means that where somebody is experiencing happiness, somebody is experiencing pain. Where somebody is experiencing sorrow, somebody is experiencing and having a positive effect of the birth of their child. So it's like, So, and what you said was critical because you're like, you know what? We have to be the ones that carry the torch. Just like the generation before us and the generation before them was the ones that carried the torch coming out of slavery.
Right.
So it's like they paid.
I take this torch.
Right. They paid. We often hear about, especially the civil rights movement, that they paid the price for us to be able to come into this space right now, speak freely without being police driving up and having something crazy happen to us or a white mob attacking us, right? They paid the price for us to have this positive experience.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, it's like I now when I realized that in order for me to propel my dad's relationship from that toxic environment, it was like, I had to be the one responsible enough to suppress my ego and do that. But it never progressed to that level until I say, because I will always attach to the fact that I was the son. I shouldn't have to do this. You're the adult.
Yes, yeah.
You're the adult. You should be doing it.
You know what my therapist said? Because I said the exact question. And he was like, well, who else going to do it? Who else? Because you can either continue to exist in this space where you're miserable and you're upset about it, or you can do the work to like free yourself from this space. And what I will say about gaslighting is I feel like the huge issue with it is that it undermines your sense of trusting yourself. And I think if you don't have a sense of like trusting your decisions in this world, it undermines how you show up in every other space. And so that's why it's so detrimental, because if you can't trust yourself, you won't trust that you're making good decisions, and you'll second guess yourself and you'll hesitate. You won't start the business, you won't build the relationships, you won't, it undermines. It's such a what do I want to say? Not cyclical, but like it kind of
snowballs. It snowballs into different things.
Into other areas.
It undermines your sense of self, period. And I think you don't have to know the term to start understanding when it's like you're in a relationship and you're not feeling good about yourself,
right?
And you're not able to make decisions without checking and going to everybody. And like when my therapist said one time, when you find yourself talking to more than 2 people about something, then you need to go to that person. Or you need to like check back in with yourself.
That's
absolutely.
Real.
And
shout out to the therapist, man.
It gave me a quantitative kind of thing where I what'd you say? What was
the 3 C's?
Catch it, change it.
There you go.
She gave me something that helped me like catch it. Because sometimes you're moving in such a automated response, because your brain's always trying to like offload things that are like, if it causes difficulty, your brain's trying to learn it, offload it, so it becomes an automatic response. And so sometimes when we're talking about like awareness, there's so many things that have been offloaded into an automatic response that you gotta get it, you gotta catch it. And so my therapist gave me like a number. It's 2. More than 2 people, you need to come back to yourself.
That's a gem for real. Absolutely. I feel like, and that's what gaslighting does, right? Just to sum it up, that's what gaslighting does. It puts us in a state of insecurity, and I think that is the echoing, and I think that is the undertone of this conversation, is that it places us in a spirit, like you're off your square, you're insecure, you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling alone, you're powerless, you're disappointed in self. It's all these things that make you question self. Now, to leave the listeners with something that's critical, I believe, is that what you pour into your spirit is what's going to be able to counter that negative energy. Right, so the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the healthy conversations. If you got that friend that's Miss Positive, like little Miss Positive, you know what's going on right now. Little Miss Positive, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's critical. Like, call that friend that's positive, not the one that's always gonna hype you up and be like, "Girl, you should go do this, you should do that." Right. Even though that makes you feel good, sometimes you got to be like, "Damn, let me go ahead and call her real quick, so she can tell me about myself and give me the information that I need." So I think what we pour into our spirit is going to be key to counteracting gaslighting. Yeah. Because if you have so much positivity poured into you, and then you run into something negative, you automatically recognize exactly what it is. You have that intuition. Right? So, because what you talked about, like, was running on that rat wheel, right? Where you feel like you're on automation. is because whenever you pour all that positive energy into yourself, your new automation is positive, is high vibration.
Absolutely.
So gaslighting is a low vibrational activity.
Right.
Absolutely.
Whenever you're in that space, and sometimes the most what our viewers may be able to correlate it to the most is that whenever you're such in a space for like 2 or 3 weeks, you locking in, you reading, you working out, you eating healthy, you haven't been going out, you haven't really seen your friends, you just been in a positive space, and then your homegirl be like, let's go to the club.
Yeah.
You like, your spirit is like, I'm not really feeling it.
Right.
And that's the same way that if you continuously work on your work on yourself, remain accountable, whenever you go out into the world and you experience these relationships that are positive or negative for you, you have the insight and the intellect within your subconscious to recognize what's good for you and what's bad for you.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
gaslighting in relationships. Amazing conversation. Thank you. That was good. You did good, Taylor.
You did
That was great. That was good. That was good.
Think that I want this, I like this, no, I love this. That feeling, I'm lovesick, can't help this, so selfish. You make me weak, oh yeah, yeah. Any day of the week, oh yeah, yeah. Heartbeat on repeat, oh yeah. Goes on and on and on and on. You make me weak, oh yeah, yeah. Any day of the week, oh yeah, yeah.